Sorry.
Get everyone in your seats.
Yeah.
Hey folks, if you'd like to grab your seats, we'll get started. Good pizza, fresh drink, grab a seat. Right, coming down the front, if you can. Your seats are going to come down the front, you'll hear a lot better.
Try to be a little less socially awkward and not stare at my phone while talking to you all. Welcome, everyone. Feel free to grab a seat and slice of pizza. We didn't organise any drinks tonight because, first meetup back and starting it off pretty easy. But welcome to the dbt Meetup. Trying to meet quarterly if we can. Big barrier to that is finding speakers. So if you've got a really cool dbt talk that you'd like to take us through, then definitely put your hand up. Just reach out to me. I invite. It's pretty easy to get something organised. So definitely do check that out. So a couple of announcements before we get into Jonathan Mack's talk. Jonathan's from Nearmap. I'm sure all of you have heard plenty about him. I'm just going to say a quick welcome back, take you through DataEngBytes if you haven't heard of it. We've got super early bird tickets going for like $49 plus GST. So you can just literally click that link and it will take you to this wonderful landing page to buy ticketing sort of things, and then select a ticket, bang. I'm sure you know how to do all of that very well yourselves. But we've got a really amazing team this year, so do check out some of these folks. Helen Anderson, she's a AWS data hero over in New Zealand. Claudia Silva, a couple of folks like Raphael from Cloudtrail, all a bunch of really great data engineers. Nitish Matthew, who heads up data engineering at Afterpay. Ingrid and Zola, who's now at Ship It, so really good team helping us out with the DataEngBytes conference this year. It's on the 26th of August, so please do check that out. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So up next, Simon Waite's he's Azure Pro Developer Lead for Microsoft. He's going to take us through a bit of what happened at Microsoft Build. Then we'll have Kelly Hotta. She's just started a couple of months back at dbt. She'll tell us a little bit about dbt stuff and the team here in APAC. And then we'll go straight into Jonathan's talk. So over to you, Simon.
Did you buy me a ticket for DataEngBytes as well? Because it was like, you were like, next. I didn't say it finished, but maybe I'm going to DataEngBytes. You should definitely get a ticket if you haven't got one already. So, all right, thank you. I won't take a lot of your time this evening. I know you're all here to hear about dbt and our other guest speaker, but when Pete said, can we come to the Reactor for the dbt Meetup, really amazed that you would bring the community here. To thank all of you, I have $50 credits for the Azure platform. I will put them up the back. Make sure you take one when you leave. All you need to do is enter an email address and off you go. No credit card, no nothing. Valid until the middle of July. Let's get into it. Build news. Hands up if you know what Microsoft Build is. And it's okay if no one in the room does. It's like somebody at the back going, I might know what it is, but I don't want to really put my hand up because then everyone will look at me. So that's all right. Let's see. And I'm going to be super quick. But I think the announcements that I'm going to cover are really applicable to this group. So Azure Cosmos Tv is our NoSQL database that's scaled inside of Azure. It's super cool because it's multimodal, so you can do things like use the SQL API. If you're using MongoDB today outside of Azure, maybe in other cloud providers, we have a MongoDB API to the service as well, so you can migrate Mongo workloads onto Cosmos and benefit from the infrastructure underneath. And if you're using things like Cassandra or Gremlin, it's also a really good place to go for that. So it's a managed NoSQL database online. At Build, which was at the end of May, we had a few announcements around it. So we have this idea of serverless, which is you can use Cosmos DB, you pay a little bit for the storage when you're not using compute, and then only pay for the compute when you're actually making calls into the Cosmos DB infrastructure to serve data to your applications. We expanded our free tier, so Cosmos DB's had a free tier for a while, but we've increased the limits both in terms of request units or RUs and the amount of space that you can use before you hit payment tier. So really good for small hobby scale projects or hobby style projects. And you know, Cosmos DB is one of those hyperscale databases, so when you look at the pricing, sometimes you can be a bit freaked out by it. So having a good size free tier is a really good way to get started with it. Like most cloud providers, we want people to have a really good experience in developing for our platform, not necessarily always being able to be connected to it. So we've introduced the idea of emulators, and we've got one coming from Linux for Cosmos DB as well. So we've already got that available on other platforms, but this new preview will allow you, if you're a Linux-based developer, to develop into Cosmos DB locally. I'll just scan over these really quickly. I think the big one out of this, or in fact big two, is the integrated cache. So Cosmos DB can be quite expensive if you do multi-partition reads, which in many applications might be a common scenario if you've got a lot of read-heavy type workloads. The way you can now start to offset some of those costs and also improve performance overall is to spin up an integrated cache. So that cache is using an inbuilt capability in the service where you just whack a button and off you go, turn on the cache, and then those read-heavy workloads are going to be served out of the cache rather than from the back-end infrastructure. And then partial document update. So no longer do you have to send a full document into Cosmos DB to update it. You can just send properties of documents into Cosmos DB to update it. A couple of announcements around our Azure database for MySQL and PostgreSQL. So these are managed database as a service offerings that offer a couple of generations of the most recent versions of both database engines. Flexible Server is a great managed service that allows you to actually stop the server and actually not incur a cost from a compute standpoint, so that you're not paying an ongoing cost for having that compute sitting idle. So it's really aimed at developers that are working on new projects that don't necessarily need to have a database always up and running. We announced that from June there'll be a 12-month free tier for both of those offerings, so you'll be able to use up to 750 hours in a year for both of those services. So a good way if you want to use managed database, again, without having to manage the infrastructure yourself. You can go into that and use that. Last year, may have been the year before actually, we acquired a business called Citus. If you work with PostgreSQL, you've probably heard that name before. So they provide hyperscale capabilities for Postgres. They're now a part of our business and continue to develop that capability. So not only is it available through our managed database service inside of Azure, but you can then take that and spin that up in your own infrastructure. We've announced that you can now spin that up in Azure on the basic tier for this database offer for PostgreSQL, which gives you an option to actually go away and start developing against it without having to spin up a premium tier that service inside of Azure. So that's really awesome. And then the most recent PostgreSQL database engine, version 13, is available for those premium tier Postgres style workloads. And then the last one is, I think one of those things that's kind of unique when you move into a managed database service in a platform like Azure is we start to introduce capabilities into the database that can do things like detect SQL injection style attacks or other styles of potential interference with the data in the database. So we introduced this idea of Azure Defender for PostgreSQL and MySQL, which is a security service that your security teams will love, and you'll love because it will stop the security teams from hassling you when it comes to auditing and tracing. Everybody loves blockchain. Hands up if you love blockchain. 1, 2, 3 people. Okay, all right. Well, so we announced the deprecation of our managed blockchain service inside of Azure just recently. We'll still have it as an offer, but it'll be through a partner and not through Microsoft directly. Where we actually see a lot of that technology going is into products like Azure SQL Database. So we've introduced this idea of Azure SQL Database Ledger, which gives you very similar style capabilities to what you would get out of a blockchain implementation, but it's embedded inside of Azure SQL Database, and it's a feature toggle that you can turn on. So you don't have to move your data into a blockchain style data store. You can actually just use Azure SQL Database today and enable this capability and benefit from that traceability and what's the word I'm looking for here? The data lineage is baked right into the data store for you, so not having to make any changes there. Then the last one, and then I'm done. Azure Purview. Who's heard of Azure Purview? One person. Okay, good. New audience. Welcome to Azure Purview. So following on from that point around data lineage, it's a problem. It's a ever-increasing problem, particularly when you go to multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, on-prem cloud, and SaaS. So what Purview is designed to do is it's designed to give you a single point somewhere in the world where you can actually start to discover all of the data sources that you have and track data lineage for those data sources. So it can be in Azure, it can be on-prem, it can be in SaaS services. We support things like Teradata, SAP, do AWS S3 at the moment. We'll continue to expand this. The service is just in preview at the moment. And if you are doing any sort of programming in this space, we provide you with an open API that just uses the Apache Atlas API, so that if you're working with that already, you can start to use the Purview Data Map service in the same way that you would other services today. At Build, we announced the ability to turn this on and do data discovery lineage inside of those two managed open source database engines that I was talking about before. That's it. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Unfortunately, I can't hang around this evening. Otherwise, I would hang around because I want to hear all the great stories that are going on inside the dbt community. I know Pete really well. If you've got any questions, you want to follow up, he knows how to find me. But that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Sam. Going through the pizzas and stuff like that tonight, so really appreciate you hosting us tonight. Thanks so much.
Happy to have you. I'll put these out the back, and if you feel free to grab all the swag off the seats, and there's a water bottle as well for the first person that comes to the back.
Awesome. Just a couple minutes while Kelly gets set up. It's just looking at, can do a bit of an introduction to Jonathan Mack's talk. Didn't realize you were going to do it on Cloudtrail tonight. That's awesome. Right down. Very cool.
Hello.
tonight. Apologies for that, just to make it all work for the live stream, but
I
sounds like we're up and running.
3 slides, so.
We talked 3 slides. Good luck.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's awesome to be here. I was just talking to Peter. I think the last in-person meetup was March of last year. I'm also pretty sure this is the first in-person dbt meetup in the world, but I'll check on that. I'm pretty sure though. So really exciting. 3 slides. I just want to introduce myself, the team, and then talk a little bit about the community and what's coming. So my name is Kelly Hotta. I am one of 3 from Fishtown Analytics dbt in the region. And we're all currently in different cities as well. So obviously I'm in Sydney, Lee's in Melbourne, hopefully not in lockdown for too much longer. Pat is in Auckland. He's actually meant to move to Melbourne 2 weeks ago, just as lockdown happened. So his timing has not been great, or maybe it's been amazing because he's still in Auckland and not locked down. So I'm the sales part of the equation. Lee's the solution architect, so technical. Lee spent, I think, 6 years at Tableau prior, so more from the BI space. I was at Snowflake for 3 years, and Pat's just recently joined us. He spent 10 years almost, I think, at Warwick Parker as an analytics engineer. So he has a wealth of experience, and he joins us as an analytics engineer. I was looking at some of the stats. Globally, we have, it's probably higher than this now, but 14,600 people in the community, which is staggering. We're a little far from that right now, but our stats are going up. So we're at 435 at last count users in Australia and New Zealand. And I guess the one thing I'll say is that this is the most exciting time for me. Even when I joined Snowflake, we were still growing the momentum, and I'm feeling the same. Seeing that growth has been amazing. Meeting everyone in person even better. I know some of you from my time at Snowflake, and I think we'll see a lot of that same excitement in the community for dbt as we go. One thing I just wanted to touch on is that Coalesce is happening again this year. You might have heard already. Who here was at last year's Coalesce? Okay, yeah, I know the camera, and some of you are already wearing Coalesce swag, so that's amazing. So a couple of things here. It's in December, so it's a while away, but I'll just say, save your spot if you haven't yet. Consider submitting a talk. I'm sure all of you have lots of amazing stories, tips, tricks you've learned over the years. We want to hear from you, so please consider submitting something. And if not, encourage someone you know to submit. We are open for papers at the moment, and we're reviewing things as they come in. Get ready for the Slack banter. I don't know if you attended last year, but I was blown away by that. So a lot of fun happens in Slack during the conference. And there's only 181 days to go, so we just have to be patient and get excited for the conference. And that's all I have. So I'll see you on Slack and later for thanks, everyone.
If you want to handle me to Jonathan. Yeah, cool. So we've got Jonathan Mack from Nearmap. You got your laptop handy over here? Okay, while you're getting set up, maybe I'll give you this, and I'll grab yours, Kelly. Yeah, cool. Awesome. It's great to finally have some dbt folks here in Australia, actually. So it's really awesome that Kelly's joined and they've got a whole team to help folks get up and running on dbt Cloud and stuff like that. That's really cool. Yeah, so I'm sure a few folks have heard about Nearmap. They're doing lots of mapping and things like that. Pretty big multi-cloud users, would you say, Jonathan?
Mainly AWS, but we do have a bit of GCP.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I think you'll probably explain today what Cloudtrail is, but it's basically changes in account permissions and things like that. So you've managed to ingest that into your data warehouse, and so you're going to take us through how you're sort of using dbt to analyze those security cloud events, I guess, to
detect anomalies, would it be? Or
It'll take a few seconds.
It's a bucket.
Looks pretty good. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. I'll leave you to it. Take it away, Jonathan.
Hello guys, and thanks Peter for having me here. Really exceeded my expectation of pizza. I never expected me to Italy, and it's there. I don't know how really hard to top that, but we've got to find a way. Hello, I'm Jonathan Mack. I'm the data engineering lead at Nearmap, and we're just going to go through what is sort of our collaboration with our DevOps team on using dbt and Snowflake for not just product analysis, usage, dollar analysis, but also something that is more sort of closer to an engineer's heart, which is cybersecurity. And just a brief introduction of what Nearmap is, who we are. We are an aerial imaging company, so what we do, very simple, we fly planes over big cities and we take pictures of the ground at different angles, and then we have our own algorithm to stitch them together into basically tiles in a map, kind of look like what you see in Google Maps, but we have more recent imagery. We have way higher resolution as well, and we also serve our content in different formats. We have 2D, so top down. We also have 3D stuff. So we take photos when we fly the planes. We take photos at a sort of oblique angle, so we capture sort of side of buildings and and the ground, and then we take the picture from different angles so that we can sort of reconstruct a mesh of detailed terrain model, very technical term, but we do that, and obviously we have a big view as well, so we can see the side of our house instead of just top down, just piece of whatever. And AI layers as well. No tech company these days can survive without at least claiming that we have an AI product, and I think we have a legit AI product. So we have a wealth of imagery. Over 10 years in Australia, so there's a lot of change detection that we're doing, and also your very typical. This is a roof. This is a swimming pool. This is a construction site. This is a crane. This is a tile. Oh my God, you're doing illegal construction in your lot without asking your council. That kind of use cases. And like I said, we serve many sectors really, but our biggest customers come from insurance. So especially in the States, say I want to give you a house insurance quote, and I don't want to go all the way, to whichever town that you're at, and inspect the roof, right? We use Nearmap, so we can see the last 3 months. Okay, this is the roof. Oh my God, there's a tree right, on top of it. So I guess the premium is going to be high. Roofing, similar things. Utilities, checking where your assets are. Your power transmission poles. Is that a good one? I forgot. And also governments as well. So, like I said, councils get more money from you. They use us, so don't pay us. Again. We also serve through APIs, and we have our web browser here. You can see at the top that's our sort of customer-facing application where you can, it's kind of like Google Maps, and sort of pan around. You can switch your view from 2D, 3D, oblique, and then you can chuck in AI layers as well. You can see the AI layers sort of down there. I don't know what those colors are really. Blue probably a pool, and that's all I can tell you now. So we're growing very fast as well. We're hiring, and I will keep sort of drilling this message, throughout the day. But let's get into what our team do. So let's say, I work in the data engineering team, and it is a massive team of 2 right now. We do a lot of things though. So we do, first of all, we do what most dbt people do. We're sucking data from systems, your money side, your CRM, your Kettle, survey platforms, something like that. And then we also have our internal services. So we have a lot of APIs, right? Microsoft uses a lot of Postgres, and it's just a pain in the ass to work everything out. And then go through Cloudtrail, we have Snowflake, dbt, job, and we also have data coming from Firehose as well, lots of our usage data. So we're a subscription business. We count how much our customers use, and that comes through Firehose. Every tile, is like records, right? So we get like 500 million records, every day from there. So it's a sizable chunk as well. Over to the end of the pipeline, we have Looker. We also pass the data back to support other teams, of their automation initiatives like Kettle, Portrait, and stuff like that. So I have allocated 10 minutes to go through what dbt is, just in case you guys don't know, and I'm not going to do that now since you guys I see too many familiar faces here, so I don't want to waste time. So the story. Where should I begin? Back when we still went to office, back when there was still a concept of an office, I used to sit right next to our DevOps team. And our DevOps team, these days, they are also called DevSecOps because who's better, to take up something that we want to do, right? That's what DevOps do. And they pick up the security part, and they start having this problem. We need to monitor, what's going on in our AWS environment, AWS accounts, right? Who opened, this cluster to the entire internet, just 0.0.0.0 IP. That's it. I do it all the time too, so I get caught. So things like this, happens all the time. So there's a real need for big words, like compliance, governance, security, risk audit, and they started looking into those vendors that we get out there. I don't want to name names because it's too low and I've forgotten more of them already. But basically, what they do is that they go through your logs and give you some insights, give you a pretty dashboard. Say, this person, has done something wrong. Go catch it, something like that. And also things like roll ups, aggregates. How many violations do we have? Last 1 week, 2 weeks, a month or something like that. So you have some high level figures that you can go and brag about, to the rest of the company or to the CTO. So they're doing all this like vendor selection, I've overheard that. I thought, this sounds like what I do day to day, right? Suck in some data and transform it, and make a new table, and then make like a pretty dashboard, and then cover my eyes and think about it. So that's the idea. Why don't we do it in-house, in data warehouse? I expected, at least some of that. It was a bit of a dead joke, but I apologize for that. So in data warehouse, and that's how the whole concept, the whole idea of let's deliver what we have with Snowflake and dbt. That's how it sort of originated. So a little bit background on this. I mentioned these vendors, these tools that they're going to buy. They mostly just go into our AWS account and look at logs, right? So what logs? So Cloudtrail logs. The first line here, when activity occurs in the AWS account, that activity is recorded in a Cloudtrail event. I copied word to word from the AWS documentation website. I don't know how to explain it better, but basically, if someone change a bucket policy. So you have an S3 bucket. There's a bucket policy to control. Who gets to write. Who doesn't get to read anything. If anything changes there, we get a log event. Someone opens a port or an IP in a security group. In EC2 instances, we get an event as well. what else? Someone sort of tries to elevate, their access in IAM or something like that. We get an event for that. So many sort of activities in AWS, they're all, they get recorded, in Cloudtrail, and they actually come in the form of JSON. So they're like, huge bulk. This is like what I'm showing here, probably like, I don't know, 5% of what a typical JSON reporting of the Cloudtrail event is. And we can actually configure them to be sort of streamed into an S3 bucket of your own choice. So that's sort of step one, solved by, in our sort of typical data problem. We have a data source, and data source is S3. It's data lake, it's lakehouse. It looks promising. And like I said, right, so we started sort of thinking about what are the requirements, and the more we try to understand it, the more it sounded like what we all do here in the day-to-day, which is analytics problem. There's a persistent storage, which is your S3. We want ease of access, because when the data is in S3, the only way you can access it or compute, and anything quick is through Athena. And Athena, I mean, I don't want to cause any controversy here, but it's a bit hard to use. Like, you've got to get your security guys, your IT team to give you access to this and that, and then the syntax is a bit, and then the speed is a bit. So all that, we want performance. We want speed of search. You can run Elasticsearch, but those are already very well-formatted JSONs, right? There must be a better way for it. We want aggregated metrics, like that's what the vendors provide, so we have to match it like. But once we have the data in, it's not too big of a problem. And then that can be sort of more unorthodox, requirements that we see. Alerts and actions. So alerts, things like, do we have a Slack message when something happens? Action, how do we mold, the DevOps team or SecOps team process around these alerts? Do we have like a Jira ticket or something like that? That also assigns someone, whenever something happens. So, but all in all, it's a classic data problem. So very quickly, we mocked up something, and that's a solution V0, V0. We had dbt, and we used dbt to run hooks, basically. We have a bunch of dummy models, and those dummy models all have hooks, and those hooks, they just run like a copy from blah, 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 into this Cloudtrail event table. So we had multiple AWS accounts, so multiple buckets, and the annoying thing about running copy commands like that is that in Snowflake, when you define the stage, right, you only can specify to like one folder, and it just keeps getting what that folder has new. And because of how Cloudtrail writes to these folders, these buckets would have like multiple folders, and you actually only have to target like specific subfolders in these root folders, and so we end up having like hundreds of them, not hundreds, but over 100 of these dummy models with dbt hooks to copy any new data that landed in these Cloudtrail buckets, and then off into Snowflake, and obviously once it's in Snowflake, there are a whole heap of things that we can do. We pass out the column, the JSON and key values into columns, and then we sort of rename something. We translate the account number into something that people can actually understand. And after that, off to Looker. And Looker, we have we made like Server Explorer actually. So this one you see here is like IP whitelist Explorer. Use this as an example because this is something that you can't do, or it's very hard to do if you were to just put Athena on top of an S3 buckets, right? Because first, it's hard to put Athena over multiple S3 buckets. Second is that when someone opens a security group in AWS, the Cloudtrail event JSON actually it has all the IPs that action has opened up. So if you open it up to you open a security group with 4 IPs in one go, you get a JSON with 4 IP. But obviously, when it comes to reporting, you want to know this IP was opened by who, that IP was opened by who, when and how many times. So this is exactly what dbt is good at, right? Data lands in data warehouse and Snowflake, and you have dbt, you pass out everything, build an incremental model, and then you end up having the IP like this. And all these explores, we configured schedule reports. I don't know if just schedules. I can't remember how it calls it. But what it does is that it just it's just a report, that shows, for the last like 3 hours, right? These are the things, these are the new events, and every hour it will refresh. And when this hour's report is different to last hour's report, it will then, trigger the schedule and send a message or an alert to our Slack. So that's a Slack message. I actually cross out a lot of things, but probably you guys get the point. And it's really ugly because if you guys have used Looker with Slack before, you can't use Slack block. So basically, you just try to make it as cute as possible, making it hand weight because you're doing more people focus on how hard it is to actually read the rest of the things. Depending on how long the message is, it just keeps folding like that, and I don't want to read it anymore. But this sort of setup, was V0 and plus one sort of storage. It's accessible, it's visible to a lot of people, to all the DevOps. It's an easy interface for them to take into as well. They can aggregate. In Looker, it's very easy. Although it's pretty ugly, but it works. It works. But there's no action, and one thing that I really didn't like about this was that you see we have dbt managing the ingestion of the raw data of events into Snowflake, and we also have dbt running in the same DAG the transformation into these tables that are actually usable. But the action, the alert, the action of sending out alerts, sending out Slack message, they're not really part of the DAG, and you get this sort of decoupling where your dbt job runs like 15 minutes ago. You have to wait till whenever is the next Looker schedule. It's could be like half an hour, could be 45 minutes, and that's that introduces some sort of lag, and that lag is not constant as well. So it's I didn't like it that much, and that's why we found Snow Alert. So turned out that Snowflake actually had an open source repo called Snow Alert, and what it does is basically it builds some tables in your Snowflake instance, and then you can define a view, and then every time Snow Alert is invoked as a Docker or something like that, it will go and check the views and see, okay, this view reports these events. This is the table of all the historical events that we have reported. What's new? Okay, these are new. What are we going to do with it? I can send to Slack. I can do PagerDuty if it's really serious. I can create Jira. I can send emails, and that was a godsend because we were really lacking on taking action on the data, right? Activating the data, and that's where Snowflake just perfect fit, right? And how do we do it? We took advantage of not just Snowflake, but a couple more things. So dbt is sort of doing the same job, sucking in events, the Cloudtrail event data from S3. But then after transformation and all that jazz, Snowflake will call an external function to alarm the job, which kicks off Docker container in Fargate in ECS. And that container is exactly is none other but the Snow Alert container. And that gets spun up and it will do its thing in Snowflake. It'll look at the new data that you've loaded, and then it'll work out what to do with it. Do I send a message? Do I create a Jira ticket or something like that? And then that's what it was there. And now we have everything in the same bag. And that was sort of the end goal. The ideal state for me. We have one day we can just go to dbt Cloud or whichever orchestration tool that you're using. You just run 2 to 3 commands, right? You run a model and you run the IP whitelist model. You run all the upstream stuff. You run all the downstream stuff, and at the end of it, you do a dbt run operation to call the external function to invoke the Lambda job and the ECS job. And that's it. Everything is within dbt and within the same day. So that was really sort of what we were really happy about. At the end of it. And I'm going to skip this. It's how Snow Alert works, but probably not very important here. But very soon after we found this problem, which is we're sucking out a lot of data from multiple accounts, multiple buckets, and you know what? Every time someone does something dumb in AWS, we get, or something smart, we get one JSON file, and that happens, hundreds of thousands of times every day in one account, and that's a lot, right? You get hundreds of thousands of JSON files in buckets, and you want to get, just use your copy command in Snowflake to keep sucking them in. We saw a very sharp increase in cloud service charge. So the cloud service charge is something that is very specific to Snowflake. It's when you use Snowflake to interact with AWS S3. It has to do all the scans and all the comparing and stuff. And it charges you for that, and it charges you depending on the volume, of how many files you're scanning. And we're scanning 1 mil, 2 mil files every day, and that powered up really quickly. The cloud service charge powered up really quickly. So the one last thing, and I promise you, this is the one last thing that we did, was that it's more AWS work. We gave in. We thought that we're not gonna have dbt to run the copy commands to suck data in from S3 buckets to Snowflake anymore. We're just gonna let Snowpipe do it. And Snowpipe is still expensive, especially when you're streaming so many files per day into your account. So what we did was we put a fire hose in one of our AWS account, and we connected it to all the Cloudtrail buckets that we had. So every time a new event happens in AWS, the buckets will emit a notification to a Lambda job, and that Lambda will go and fetch the new file that just got written into the S3 bucket, and relay it to Firehose, and Firehose will then batch it. So it will max out the batching interval. So it's something like every 15 minutes or 100 megabytes or something like that. So in doing that, we massively reduce the number of files that Snowflake has to load, right? Yes, there's a trade-off there. That means we get the data recency, in Snowflake with with the Cloudtrail data is, it gets refreshed every 15 minutes, but that's it, who cares, 15 minutes, that clock seems not even there. So anyway, so by doing that, we actually sort of, we cut a lot of the loading costs, 1/3 or maybe 1/4, but that really sort of completely stagnated from a cost perspective. Now we have the sound way to get the data in from S3. We have dbt to transform the data. We have dbt to invoke, all these actions, to send out Slack messages, to create Jira tickets, and that's basically So a bit of reflection here. That's a lot of work, right? And the bits that I didn't mention as well. Stuff in Firehose we manage with Terraform, and the Snowflake external function is not really that easy to set up as well. You need to set up an API gateway, and that gateway involves a Lambda job and stuff like that. That's more Terraform. So there must be trade-offs, right? So what are the trade-offs? So I guess my takeaway from this is that I didn't regret doing this because this Cloudtrail data was our data, it was Nearmap's data, and we should own it, right? That's why I'm always an advocate. If you have the resources, let your team build it, because down the track, you want some logic change, you can do it. You want to change something else, there's more flexibility for you to do it as well. So control your data, control your destiny. And I'm grateful that this solution worked, and I was able to sell it, to people, because the end user, the engineers, the DevOps, they know what I'm talking about. They're not scared by all those diagrams, by all the technical jargons that I just mentioned. And having the data in the data warehouse also sort of unlock that unlimited ability to generate insights, right? When you buy a tool, it gives you what it thinks is best for you. So do you want to be fed what people think you want to eat? You might want to eat it today, but tomorrow you might want to eat something else, right? So that flexibility to roll up your own aggregates, to build your own metrics and stuff like that, it's quite invaluable down the track, right? At the beginning, your tool is giving you, your vendor might be giving you exactly what you want, but down the track, God knows what happens, and you want that flexibility down the road when you need it. And it might not suit your team, right? I've mentioned a lot of, not just dbt, but a lot of AWS stuff, a lot of Terraform stuff. Does your data team have that technical depth to do it? And a lot of data teams say, especially in dbt world, they use dbt because they want to empower analysts, to do more work. And it's one thing to empower analysts to do more, with business, and it's quite another thing to get your analysts to all of a sudden, hack stuff, in your AWS account, right? So it's something that you want to think about from a sort of resource capacity capability point of view. And also, this security problems, it turned out to be a data problem to us. It's an analytics problem to us. And analytics problem, basically dbt problems these days. So it just shows how flexible, you can apply dbt, and how the variety of things that you can apply dbt to. And not just that as well. I think a lot of other things, say a lot like marketing attribution and stuff like that. People are already using dbt to do the job, but these are also things that I think I hope that I've shown that we can bring them in-house and have that flexibility and control the destiny there. And lastly, and this is sort of a segue to I'm talking about last year, which is dbt or dbt cloud. I think it's not just like a DAG tool, right? It's not just a transform tool. I think if you use it in the right way, it could be an orchestration tool as well. say, like at the end, or not at the end, but the V1 or something like that, I had dbt controlling every aspect of this cybersecurity data project, data pipeline, from loading the data, transforming the data, sending out whatever useful information is in the data and taking action. It's all in the same deck, and that gets us into the world of what other use cases like that can be unlocked, right? Do I have dbt to somehow manage getting data from Marketo and then transform it and then send it to Salesforce as well? It might be a very sort of bastardized version of how people use dbt, but it's so that's basically it. And for this Snow Alert project, I actually wrote a Medium article on it as well. So feel free. I don't expect you guys to take over the pen and jot it down. If you search Snowflake and Snow Alert, and Medium, you'll probably find page 2, page 3, or something like that. So again, I told you that I was going to keep through with you guys. We are hiring. So we're hiring a data engineer, analytics engineer. So I hope that was interesting enough for you. And if you're interested, really, come and talk to me after the talk. Okay, thanks.
Awesome, round of applause. For the online audience, I'll just bring around the lapel mic just so that people can hear questions. I've got a quick question. SIEMs tend to be typically quite expensive. Did you find this solution that you put together a bit better from a cost perspective? And I guess, did you find any sort of capability that you lost or gained by, like SIEMs are typically using Elasticsearch as their querying tool versus a sort of data warehouse type situation?
Yeah, cost-wise, I think I'm pretty confident that it's cheaper than paying like 10K, 20K for a vendor. We share warehouses between jobs, so by having more to run in warehouse, we get more value from Snowflake as well. And also, lots of the stuff that you see, they're open source. Snow Alert was open source, so we didn't pay anything for it. Hosting or running a Fargate job every hour, it costs nothing, right? So a lot of the cost was on Snowflake, like sucking data, which is like, I don't know, 1 credit, 2 credits a day, something like that. So you're talking about, I'm not going to tell you our enterprise deal. Anyway, so yeah, it's pretty cheap to, by the end of it, when after we set up firewalls and everything, it's pretty cheap to ingest the data. And I think there's added value, there's hidden value there that you own your own data. You can come back and look at it, whenever you want, in whatever way that you want. And that's sort of what you can't buy from a vendor lots of times. So cost-wise, I'm pretty confident that it's better than what we otherwise get from vendors. And the second question was
capability that you gained or lost by choosing a warehouse versus an Elasticsearch backed solution, I guess. Yeah.
So with everyone here who wrote Looker before, when you wrote Looker, you have a sequence layer, and what you're doing is actually defining patterns of questions that your stakeholders can ask, right? And I guess that's the limitation. How you model your data affects what kind of question stakeholders can get. But again, coming back to that's exactly what dbt makes so easy, right? You want new insights, come to me, log a ticket. I make a new dbt model, I surface in Looker or whatever, and that's a really quick process, and I don't think much is lost. I think what's more interesting is when you buy into a vendor, you're not buying just the capability, you're buying the design, the idea behind it as well. So every vendor will have like slightly different metrics, and that's knowledge that you're actually paying as well. Say your DevOps team, you just started doing security, you don't know what you should be looking into. What sort of metrics, should I brag about, that would only keep going up but not going down, right? These tools tend to give you like a quick answer on that. Whereas, you do the whole analytics project yourself, you have to go through that sort of requirements, just understanding the data and understanding, what is the right question to ask. And that I don't know how to quantify or put a dollar figure on it, but that's something to think about.
Yeah, good answer. Question?
Thank you for talk. You mentioned you used the dbt to create models for the DevOps team. I was just wondering, who did that? Was it data analyst like yourself, or was it the DevOps team?
So basically, a data engineering team. The idea was always to teach one of the DevOps people to get into that. Well, COVID happened, and we barely get any sort of office time, so we sort of die. The whole idea died. But to answer the question, the data engineering team does it. Can analysts do it? I think absolutely. But the thing is, where you're going to find an analyst that knows AWS security. If they don't know anything about that, they'll be doing something else. But again, it comes back to it's not quite about like who's doing what, but who potentially can do what. Given the process infrastructure that we have, it's a lot easier to bring in a DevOps guy to run some SQL rather than more sort of flexible setup where no one can do anything.
Any questions?
Awesome.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. So one of them, I was just wondering, how long did it take?
How long?
Yeah, that was my first question. Like, how long did the project take from start to finish?
So it depends. It's 80-20, right? Are you talking about like the whole 100, or even just the 80-20? So I guess from sort of from start to basic release would be like 2 weeks. Yeah, but again, it really depends on whether you have a full resource that's dedicated to it. I was doing other stuff as well. Like I used to tell me, I have a day job. You're not telling me what to do, right? So, but I think it's if you get the right person, who knows all your AWS stuff and knows how to do Terraform or CloudFormation or something like that. And then Snowflake dbt, you can get it pretty like a week or something like that. But again, or after that, right? A lot of tuning, a lot of people coming with you to say, this looks wrong, and then I don't know how to quantify that, but and it sort of stopped after a month or two.
Yeah, okay. And the kind of like follow-up to that was, have you kind of found the maintainability? Because I don't know, I think AWS is a new service every week, like all sorts of security vulnerabilities. It's like a very moving target, I guess.
Well, this project really targets a really specific thing, which is Cloudtrail logs, right? So the DevOps team, they decide what goes into Cloudtrail logs, and it's sort of not my call to say we need data on this, on that. If they want to log this change, they'll do it, and we provide that sort of query layer for them. In terms of new things, in terms of maintainability, again, I think the whole process is made very well. The AWS part set up once, really. Set up once and forget about it. The dbt part, yes, there will be new requirements. I want to look at this that I haven't looked at before, but that's the whole point of using dbt, right? You can hopefully you can get some analysts to do it, but even without, there's still a very quick and easy way for you to make new models, updating models, deploy new models as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Leo, for the question, and everyone else. No further questions. We'll let Jonathan breathe a little easier. That's yep. Okay, mate. Very good presentation. Really appreciated that. I'm sure everyone else did. Look, so we're trying to run dbt meetups probably on a quarterly cadence, but we could do it more frequently if you folks are interested in presenting and stuff like that. As you can see from Jonathan's talk, dbt can be used for a variety of use cases. There's, even DevSecOps folks that are interested in, putting it to good use. So really, just encourage you to, let us know if you're interested, and appreciate you turning out in such strong numbers, especially all the stuff happening in Melbourne around COVID-19 and stuff like that. And just send us through any feedback that you've got, how we can improve the meetup and stuff like that. And like that, AWS tickets. Something else, see you folks on the screen.